So today we're going to go over some of the basics of how to create the albumen for the albumen process. So there's going to be several steps we're going to have to go over today. The first part is going to be separating the eggs and then weighing out all of the chemicals that we need, both the dry and liquid ingredients, combining those together. And then we're going to be beating the eggs for about 15 minutes to create a nice big froth. And then we'll have to let that sit for about 24 hours and then remove all of the froth that's left. All of the actual albumen that we're going to use is going to settle, and then we'll be straining it tomorrow and through cheesecloth, and then allowing that to kind of percolate for about a week before we actually use the albumen that's going to be created, and then double coating those sheets of paper to then use as part of the process. So just kind of bear with me as we go through all the different steps. And albumin's a labor of love, so it's not going to be an instantaneous process, but the end result is really beautiful. So here we go. So it's going to take us about 30 eggs to create the about 1 liter of albumin. So we're going to do it one egg at a time. So we're going to start by cracking an egg and then separating it into a single container. So in order to separate the egg whites, just kind of go back and forth between the two halves of the shell, keeping the yolk in each of the halves until you separate out as much of the egg white as possible. And then I've just set up a bag over here in a tray just so it doesn't leak everywhere, to kind of hold the yolks. We want the egg white to be as pure as possible. So the reason we're separating it into one egg at a time is that if we get any of the yolk in there, we want to disregard that egg completely. Any of the yolk, the protein in the yolk will kind of destroy the albumin. So we need to make sure we keep it completely pure as far as the egg white's concerned. We also want to get rid of any of the stringy parts that are in there. So if you look closely down here at the bottom, there's this little kind of white stringy part of the egg. So we're going to be removing that using a stainless steel spoon, and so I'll just scoop in there and try to drain off along the side as much of the good albumin as we can. And then we're going to disregard that into our tray from earlier. And again, try to scoop out any that's still remaining and drain off as much of the good albumin as we can so that we don't lose any of the egg whites. But we want to have that as pure as we can. And if you look in there now, it looks completely clear. And then we'll go ahead and dump that into our other container and then keep separating each of the eggs one at a time. So here's our larger container. We'll go ahead and pour in our egg whites. And then we'll start cracking the next egg. So we'll go ahead and grab our second egg. And again, we'll split it. Try to make sure we don't get any shell or any of the yolk. And just try to get as much of the albumin off as we can. There we go. And then throw that away. And then again, look down at the bottom, check and see if there's any of the stringy. This one actually looks really clean. We'll go ahead and pour that into our bucket. So again, we're going to need to do this for about 30 eggs to do 1 liter's worth of albumin. So we're a little bit over halfway done. Our first set of 18 eggs are done. We're going to go ahead and start the next dozen eggs. You'll notice these are just the cheapest grade A jumbo white eggs that you can find. It's actually better to use the cheap eggs. There's less of the stringy stuff than trying to buy like the brown organic, range free, even though it feels bad to support those eggs. These eggs. It's actually a better egg for doing what we're doing. So we'll just kind of carry on. We're about halfway through, a little bit over a half liter of the albumin, or egg whites, so we'll just keep going. And during the last 18, I lost 1 egg due to the yolk breaking, and so I just went ahead and dumped that so that we didn't get any of the yolk kind of mixed in there. So it's always best to, make sure that you have extra eggs rather than trying to just have enough in case there's a mistake. Always better to have more than not enough. So we've reached our last egg, so we're just going to go ahead and separate this one just like all the rest. And this is really the most time-consuming part of mixing up this up. You notice I broke the yolk on this one, so we're going to go ahead and dump it. Luckily, we're already just a little bit over one liter, so since there's a little bit of yellow down in there, we're not going to be able to get that out. So what we'll do is just go ahead and throw that in here with the rest of the eggs that were broken. Now in here, we've got our 1 liter of albumen. So there's a shot of our 1 liter of egg whites. There's not a lot of stringy things in there. We'll just double check and look and see if there's any little things that may have settled. There's a few that have gotten through there. So we'll go ahead and scoop those out and dump it. If you can kind of see along this back side here, showing us this bucket shows us 1 liter. So we're pretty much exactly at 1 liter of egg whites. And now what we need to do is go over and weigh out our chemicals that we're going to use, and then we'll be ready to use the blender and start to combine the salt and the sodium citrate and the glycolic acid with our albumen to make the base for our albumen paper. Okay.